What was the worst experience you've had during Halloween? Getting so excited with all the candy I had and puking into the bucket of candy. I was like 7 or 8 and dressed like an angel. Parents took me to the science museum where they set up little houses for the kids to trick or treat in. I got so much candy and was so proud of myself. But when we left, all my candy was gone. The little boy behind me had been taking scoops of my candy and putting it in his basket. I cried. Kids are assholes. I was walking home with my friend when I was like 9 and a car of high school kids or around that age stole all our candy. 3 hours of work gone. That's horrible. Thought that kind of stuff only happened in sitcoms. Had the stomach flu one year on Halloween. I was a month shy of turning 11. My parents took my younger siblings out trick or treating and I was stuck alone in the house blowing chunks out of both ends. Yeah, I had a really bad stomach bug food poisoning at Halloween when I was 18ish. When my friends were going to an awesome party at an empty mansion. Was so bummed. This happened to my friend who is not on Reddit. It's Halloween night and there's a knock on her parents' door. Dad goes to open it and there is a man with a bag on his head standing on their porch. Silent. The man makes a move to step into their house and dad pushes him backwards. Everyone watches as the man falls backwards off of their step and smashes his head on the ground. It is revealed that the man with the bag is my friend's grandfather mom's dad who was trying to Halloween prank them. He was rushed to the hospital with permanent damage, no longer able to care for himself or his wife who had health issues as well. They both ended up in convalescent care. Additionally, my friend's mother never forgave her husband, placing the blame of the accident entirely on his shoulders. They divorced shortly after. My friends telling me they weren't doing anything only to all hang out all evening while I stayed home alone. Teen years can suck. Edit, I must clarify this was like 15 years ago. Thankfully I have some great friends now. Teen years can absolutely suck. When we graduated high school all my buds went to one guy's house where his mom had bought them customized beer steins with their last names and shit. I came over later, but it was still awkward lol. Ugh, I feel like I've had that same situation. Like, oh yeah, we are hanging out. I guess you can come over. Welp, self-esteem all the way down. It was 15ish years ago, but safe to say not really friends with any of them anymore. Not being able to celebrate Halloween as a kid and watching all my friends go trick or treating from my window. My neighbors were JWs and wouldn't let their kids go out for Halloween. We used to all pool our candy and each set aside a bit and sneaked it to him at school. His mom found out and got bullshit and complained to my mom who laughed and said something like, "Isn't Jesus about sharing?" She was a nutcase. My mom was pretty strict with how much candy I was allowed to eat on Halloween. One year, after some annoying begging, I finally got my mom to say eat as much as you want. Heh. Spent about an hour barfing up peanut butter cups and warheads. I've heard of parents paying the kids for the candy like a certain amount per item, and then the kids can use the money to buy a toy or video game. Seemed like a good way to prevent them getting sick while still making Halloween fun. Junior year of high school, my cousin and I volunteered to drive some of the younger kids from church and chaperone their trick or treating. We were walking down the street, back toward my truck, when I hear a sound that was familiar, but didn't click at first. I hear it again, and feel something was past me and hit the concrete. I realized it was someone with a pellet gun. About the time one of the little girls screamed this blood-curdling wail and fell down. He had shot her in the eye with a CO2 powered pellet gun. My cousin took off running toward a yard, leaned down and grabbed a hunk of gravel concrete from the driveway and chunked it into the tree. He had a 92mm fastball and hit the kid, knocking him from a limb and onto the ground. I'm wrangling 7 kids, from 6-12 years old, all screaming and crying, while my cousin is beating the budgers out of this guy's sinus cavity. Parents are running outside, and it's chaos when the police and ambulance finally show up. Long story short, kid with a pellet gun got an assault with a deadly weapon, and another charge, and the little girl 8 years old lost her eye from the incident. My mom's funeral happened to fall on Halloween. This sucks and I'm sorry to hear. My dad's was New Year's December 31st, and it has made that day difficult for me. Halloween 2014. My dad died. He had cancer, and I had a flight out November 1st to say goodbye. Got a call early on Halloween morning telling me to get on a plane as soon as possible. During my layover I got the call he had passed. Holiday still kinda sucks for me. I'm sorry my dad died around the same time from cancer in 2011. Despite the holidays, this time of year always kind of sucks. I was going out with a girl back in high school whose birthday fell on Halloween. Her brothers absolutely hated my guts for no reason whatsoever. I wasn't a troublemaker, didn't do things I wasn't supposed to, and tried really hard to get on good terms with them. Anyway, she threw a birthday party for herself at her older brother's basement. I showed up with a couple friends, and while the party was pretty lame, I was there for her. When I went to give her the gift I had wrapped, her older brother grabs me by the collar and shoves me outside on the concrete steps. I asked him what his problem was. He told me to get the heck out of his house. His sister tries to get him to stop and tells me it's okay to go back inside the house. Her other brothers then showed up shortly after and well, I got my ass handed to me. I ended up just leaving the party with a black eye and a bruised up face. I lied to my parents that I picked a fight with someone and lost. We broke up shortly after. This didn't happen to me, but to a female friend in high school. Her brothers and father didn't like her dating, and it got to the point where she hated them for it. Her brothers brat up her boyfriend, now husband, while they were dating, and she threatened to elope with him if they kept doing that. When they got married, they weren't invited, and her mom had long since divorced her dad. He was habitually a no-show at work, and she was the main breadwinner. I remembered one time picking her up to take her to the airport and her dad was there telling me he'd want to use his guns, trying to scare me. I mentioned how I knew he didn't have a license, and if he did shoot me, he'd be in prison. Her brothers did get better, but goddamn they too were a nightmare. I grew up in northern Canada, and when I was probably 5 or 6, I got me a Darth Vader costume. One of those vinyl costume and capes with a lightsaber and thin plastic mask. I thought I was so cool back then. Well, being northern Canada, it was exceptionally cold that year, like below 30°C. I went out that evening bundled up and ready to show off my cool outfit. But it was so cold, the costume just cracked and disintegrated as I went around the block. Due to the weather, I barely got around the block. But by the time I was home, I just had the lightsaber and mask. The rest of the costume just fell apart in pieces as I moved. The Battle of Hoth truly was a turning point in the galactic civil war. I was 14, and I went out with my group of friends, and I was always the one left out. They dressed in girly costumes, and I was a full-on clown with big shoes. I walked with one of the girls' moms the entire time, because they were ahead and the big shoes slowed me down. They went into a haunted house, and I was too scared, so I waited outside, and then I couldn't sleep over, because I was really allergic to my friend's cat. I did find a $20 bill on the floor though. If it makes you feel any better, you would definitely be the main character in a coming-of-age Halloween movie for kids. Getting tear gassed on Polk Street in San Francisco, mid-1970s. Evening. Everyone is milling around in crazy Halloween costumes. Lots of fun. Very chill. Until some asshole chucks a tear gas canister into the crowd. Pure chaos ensued, and my throat was sore for 24 hours. Brother died 2 years ago. He had battled cancer for a while. The Great Pumpkin took him home. When I was around 11-12 I went out trick-or-treating with a friend. Ran into some older kids my friend wanted to hang out with, so we tagged along. They wanted to go pumpkin smashing. I was a rule follower and didn't want to be around trouble, but I let my friend talk me into it. We come to a house that had a bunch of great pumpkins. You could tell they spent a bunch of time on them. There was a candy bowl with a note, so the kids start destroying the pumpkins. I just watched, feeling uncomfortable. Couple days later I'm reading the paper and see a letter to the editor from the owners of house. They listed the address. It said how awful it was and how it wrecked their kids who spent so much time on the pumpkins. I felt sick. I showed my friend, and he thought it was cool and took it to show those other kids. I realized then our association was more about living on same street than friendship. I still feel terrible. You shouldn't feel guilty. You didn't do it, and you wouldn't have been able to stop them. Feeling bad for the kids whose Halloween was ruined is understandable though. Was trick-or-treating with 3 buddies freshman year of high school. We were joking about being a little old to do it, but it was all in good fun. Some kids 2 years older were running around in skull masks doing rowdy teenager stuff, and decided it would be a good idea to take my candy. They were much larger than us, and had no trouble. One grabbed my bag and another one grabbed me, and threw me down in the street. No serious injuries, but I had skinned knees and palms. I was pissed. Filed a police report and the officers took it seriously. We got out the yearbook and identified 3 of them, and they were picked up that night. They were charged with strong arms robbery as juveniles and got a ton of community service and had to pay for my mom's lost pillowcase candy damaged clothing. I caught some flack for it at school from their girlfriends. They were ordered not to talk to me, but didn't really care because I felt like justice was served. Damn. I was expecting this to end at you getting pushed to the ground. Good for you for getting justice. I was expecting this to end at you getting pushed to the ground. I did, too. Then I saw that there was still a lot of text and thought, what's that? A recipe for a tasty cake. But, lo and behold, it was more of the story. The lesson is to keep reading, I guess. Someone threw a raw egg at my friends and I from a passing pickup, and it exploded against the back of my hand. Such pain. One time I was walking through the city and felt something hit my head with a decent amount of force. I thought it was someone trying to pick a fight or prank me. There was a wave of incidents around that time where people would slap the back of someone's head and then run away. So I turned around to see. Turns out there was no one there. And it was just a bird that had shit on my head with incredible force and volume. I had to wear a dress for school all the time. This one was below my knees, and when I was running, my feet got caught in the dress. I fell and skinned my knee and my legs. Went trick-or-treating anyway, because the blood made my costume look more real. It was freezing out, and I was shivering. Fell again and hurt my hands. But since it was so cold, it hurt even worse. While I was dealing with that, my friends wanted me to go to the neighborhood across the road. I said no, and said that I was hurting too much. One of the kids I was with said that I was a goody because my parents wouldn't let me go, and I was lying to them about being in pain. He stole my candy, and I went home bloody and empty-handed. Back when I was in college, the exhaust fell off my car on my way home after classes. I had a rusted out Fox body Mustang at the time. The best part is that it struck the ground, tore the hangers off, and got stuck on the rear axle. In the short amount of time it took for me to stop, it split off into pieces and managed to blow one of the tires. I had to pull the mangled mess out, change the tire in a light drizzle cold October night in New England, and drive home with an obnoxiously loud exhaust. It didn't even sound good. I had to drive through a few neighborhoods to get back to the highway. I had kids and adults screaming at me because this thing sounded like a machine gun. I've owned several 800 plush cars since and ran open headers several times and those sounded far better and actually less obnoxious. I got home. My father was waiting at the driveway and said you better get that damn thing fixed tomorrow. I had maybe 50 to my name since I was working full time and going to college full time. I had to work out a payment plan with the exhaust shop. Whole thing sucked in general. A few years ago on October 29th, I had an operation on my shoulder, which was closed with 12 staples. On Halloween 2 days later, my young daughter wanted to go trick-or-treating, high on prescription painkillers. I thought it was a great idea to take her, with my arm in a sling. We went trick-or-treating and I ended up racing her from house to house, between 2 houses. I slipped and fell directly on my arm in the sling. It's keyed. I was taking my then 2-year-old out for his first time. He's 15 now, and I was 41 weeks pregnant with my second child, single mom. Dad isn't and never has been around for my son, so it was up to me to take him. I went into labor and my water broke after 45 minutes of walking around our neighborhood. When I got to the hospital, because I'm diabetic. They had to draw blood to run some tests. The nurse left the empty collection vials across the room. So when she finished with the first vial, she had to cross the room to get the next one. She didn't clamp the fourth tube when she took the first vial off. So when she walked away, there was a literal fountain of blood spraying out of my arm. I started laughing hysterically. She turned around, started laughing herself, and said, "Well, happy Halloween, I guess." It was awesome. In my 20s, one of my friends would have a giant shindig every year. My ex and I went 3 years in a row, and each year he became more and more of a sloppy mess. The first year wasn't too bad, but the second one he ended rolling around in the grass in the backyard making a fool of himself. But the third year, we showed up a couple of hours early to help our friend set up. But as soon as we got there, my ex decided to take one of those giant yard cups that people carry around in Vegas and made himself an enormous Long Island iced tea. He drank that thing down in 15 minutes tops. He started to get sick right as people started to show up. He spent the whole night sitting on the back porch vomiting like he was starring in the remake of The Exorcist. And for some reason his friends thought I should have been sitting with him rubbing his back or something. Duck that. He put himself in that position. He could live with the consequences. It was always his friends who encouraged him to drink like that. So I left him with them and went home. We broke up after that. I don't care if people drink. But what I can't stand is a sloppy drunk that knows they are pushing their limits and keeps going anyway. Edit typo.